The next day, I did two things. First, I asked Mom if I could use my travel allowance to buy dog food for Bon Bon at the pet supply store a few blocks away. I couldn't give her a home, but I could give her food and water, and plenty of love. The second thing I did was march back downstairs to help out at the patisserie, with Mom's words sounding in my head. When you travel, there are really no mistakes, just learning opportunities. I wasn't going to learn anything if I couldn't allow myself to make a few mistakes along the way. So I decided that if I wanted to have more fun during the rest of my stay, I had to try again. That first morning back in the patisserie, I proved I was a very skilled dishwasher. I was a skilled floor sweeper too, now that I knew to sweep the floor only when the counters were clear of food. Some mistakes you only make once. Now that I had jumped in, Colette found more and more things for me to do. Grace, can you do? She demonstrated cracking one egg into a bowl with one hand. I shook my head. So she taught me how to crack an egg with one hand without breaking the yolk. It took a little practice, but before long, voila! She taught me how to properly use a whisk to make whipped cream. And then she taught me how to carefully use a piping bag to fill eclairs. I learned to stay clear of the pathway during ovens and counters when trays of anything hot were coming out. But oh, the air was warm, sweet, and with yeasty baked goods and melted sugar and butter. The next morning when I woke up, Sylvie was gone. Was she already downstairs? I quickly got dressed, wondering what new techniques Colette might teach me today in the patisserie. I dashed out of the bedroom, and Mom called to me from the kitchen. Um, Happy Bastille Day, Grace, she said in a sing-song voice. Happy what? I asked, stepping into the kitchen. Bastille Day, France's Day of Independence. July 14th here is like a lot like July 4th back at home. Come sit and I'll tell you about it. I was torn, eager to get downstairs, but Mom had that look on her face that that said breakfast was more of an order than a request. So I trooped to the table where she had a croissant waiting for me. France had a revolution much like ours. We threw off being governed by England an ocean away. Here, the people were overtaxed and hungry, and they didn't want to be governed by their kings and queens any longer. On July 14th, 1789, they stormed the Bastille, a fortress and a prison in Paris. Mom was such a teacher, but I couldn't resist asking. Then what happened? Well, King Louis XVI was taken to guillotine and beheaded. I sucked in my breath. And the Queen? The Queen at the time was Mary Antoinette. They arrested her too and held her in a tower here on the scene. Eventually, she lost her head too. Ouch, I said, taking a bite of the croissant sticking in my throat. Revolution comes from the word revolt. When people feel voiceless, they sometimes revolt and take matters into their own hands. And today, the people of France are celebrating their revolution, or the new government that was formed because of it. There will be parades and maybe fireworks later. Sound like fun? I nodded, but the word fun made me think of the patisserie. I swallowed my last bite and chugged my juice. Can I be done? Yes, Grace, your history lesson is done. Get on downstairs. I gave Mom a quick hug and raced down the narrow stairs into the patisserie kitchen, where I found Uncle Bernard, Sylvie, and Colette hard at work. Happy Bastille Day, I announced. Sylvie looked up in surprise. Bastille Day? Ah, La Place de Bastille. Happy Bastille Day, Grace, she said, smiling. Uncle Bernard nodded. Yes, a day to celebrate. You've all been working very hard. This afternoon you will go to the Brazilian shop. Very famous. Then he added in French, Allez donc vous prendre une glance. A smile stretched across Sylvie's face, and I waited in suspense to hear what had been said. Colette translated for me. De la glance, Grace. Ice cream. I gave a thumbs up. Ice cream everywhere was a treat. When the afternoon came, I was more than ready for a bike ride to the Brazilian. I was thrilled to go on an outing with Colette. Sylvie was pretty quiet around me, but we managed to exchange a few words here and there. With Colette, I felt a little freer. She could, after all, speak my language. Colette tucked her black ruffled skirt beneath her as she jumped on her bike. I wasn't surprised anymore to see women in dresses and men in business suits on bikes zipping around Paris. I was riding on Sophie's bike today, with the seat lowered just enough to fit me. I saw a bold French flag painted on a little boy's cheek. Sylvie caught it too, and we exchanged smiles. Girls, first we go to Les Halles. We crossed the river, and Sylvie and I followed Colette like little ducklings. Wasn't about to get lost again. Le Louvre, Colette said, biking into an expanse of stone square between brick buildings. At the center of the square stood a large glass pyramid. It was such a modern design in the middle of this old city. Colette explained in words and gestures that it was the entrance to the vast surrounding museum where lines of visitors seemed to extend for miles. I was glad to be biking instead of standing in line. Les Halles turned out to be a nearby neighborhood famous for its baking and cooking shops. We parked our bikes, and then Colette pulled out a piece of paper with a short list of items. Girls, she said to me and Sylvie, holding up the list for us to read. We need for la pâtisserie, she repeated in French for Sylvie. The list of items was all in French. En anglais, s'il te plaît? I asked, pointing to the words. In English, please. Colette quickly interpreted. Then we were off looking for pastry rings, pastry brushes, and more, as if on a scavenger hunt together. My head spun as I followed Colette and Sylvie in and out of shops filled with every sort of baking pan and cookware imaginable. I saw rows of cooking utensils, stoneware dishes of yellow, red, white, black, and eggplant purple. Special pans and dishes for making many of the French treats I'd come to love, such as Madeleine's tarts and creme brulee, the yummy custard with caramelized top. At one shop, when Colette asked for baking paper, a man in a tie climbed to the top of a ladder to retrieve the paper from a tall stack of supplies. At another shop, Sylvie paused to hold up a fake red lobster and struck a pose. It was half her size. I laughed, whipped out my phone, and click. It took some effort, but we finally found everything on Colette's list. Voila, I said, hopping onto my bike after Colette. Mission accomplished, Sylvie chimed from behind me. Her English had taken me by surprise. I started to giggle. Mission accomplished? Where did you learn that? I had called over my shoulder. But she just laughed, and then, like a parrot, repeated it again. Mission accomplished. Hearing such a familiar phrase spoken in Sylvie's French accent cracked me up. Who knew running errands could be so much fun? We biked across another bridge onto a little island called Ile Saint Louis. On another corner of an outdoor cafe, I spotted a sign with a long list of ice cream flavors. Berthelian, Sylvie called with a big smile. I quickly realized that the worst part about visiting Berthelian, the famous place to stop for ice cream, was making a decision. I finally settled on noisette and framboise, hazelnut and raspberry, instead of one scoop on top of the other. The little cake cone had two scoops side by side. Cute. We leaned over the stone wall with our cones, licking them faster than the sun could melt them away. Below, long tourist boats drifted by, with guides and board giving the history of the little island and Notre Dame Cathedral up ahead. Everything had felt so strange, so different then, but only in a few weeks' time, some things were starting to seem familiar. I was feeling at home. I couldn't believe that today I was actually out exploring the heart of Paris with Colette and Sylvie. I smiled at them as they licked their cones. I miss too, la glance, Grace. Sylvie repeated the question in English. Do you like ice cream, Grace? I like it? I took another look. If I wasn't quite sure, I let my tongue savor the flavors. No, I don't like it. For a moment, they both looked disappointed. I don't like it. Je t'aime, and corrected me. It's je l'aime. Ooh, I said, taking another lick. I love it. Sylvie giggled again, which made the ice cream taste much sweeter. As we biked across the bridge toward the patisserie, we came upon two musicians, an accordion player and a violinist, with an open case at their feet filled with coins. They were playing an energetic tune, like a marching song, like something you might hear at the start of a sports event, and the man playing the accordion was singing in a deep, proud voice. Colette put up her hand, signaling for that she wanted to stop. We joined her and pulled off to the side near the musicians, where a few other people were gathering too, singing along. Les Marseillais, she whispered to me. How do you know how to say a national song? I let the music flow through me as Colette transferred the links. And the accordion player sang Marchons, Marchons, and Colette leaned toward me and whispered, March, March. And I wanted to, or at least sing along with the others whose voices swelled together into a wonderful chorus. As the song came to the end, we applauded and turned back to our bikes. But then the musicians began something new, a sweet melody that caught Colette's attention. She swayed slightly, moving with the rhythm, and then she began to sing. Her voice fluttered up and around us, as unexpectedly beautiful as a pigeon in flight. I turned to Sylvie, who looked equally surprised, and the accordion player had smiled through his short gray hair. The violinist, a woman with volumes of red hair, nodded approvingly at Colette. Colette sang on, seeming completely confident and at ease. I could never do that, I thought to myself, wishing I had the courage to just jump in and do something unexpected. Here, everything seemed like I struggled for the right word. I don't know, lighter, as if the air was filled with something magical, filled with possibility. I wished I had researched some French songs, practiced them, so that I would be ready for this moment. Much as I like to plan ahead, I guess there are some moments that you just can't plan for. Stay loose, Mom said to me at the start of our trip. Maybe it was time for me to let go a little, loosen up, and take some risks. When the musicians started in with the Frere Jacques, a song I knew, I felt as if we were playing it just for me. Before I could change my mind, I tossed caution to the wind and stepped into the circle and joined in singing. Suddenly, Sylvia was beside me. Together, we were singing our hearts out. A small crowd gathered again, and people started tossing more coins into the open violin case. I smiled ear to ear as I sang, sharing this moment of fame with Sylvie and Colette. When the song ended, some people around us clapped. Sylvie and I burst into laughter. I felt so good, so free. When the musicians offered to share some of their tips with us, Colette shook her head and just said merci. The musicians bowed in our direction and then waved goodbye as we got on our bikes. Au revoir, we called as we began to pedal away. And long after we reached the other side of the bridge, I could still hear the beautiful sound of that violin. We took a different route home because several streets were closed for a parade. I could hear the marching band in the distance. But then when a few military planes flew overhead, I ducked my head, which made Sylvie laugh behind me. When we reached La Patisserie, the stray little dog was already hanging out by the front door, ready for an early dinner. I quickly ducked inside to get the bag of dog food and refilled her empty bowl. Just then we heard an explosion of fireworks somewhere nearby. Bonbon crouched down low, ready to run. It's okay, puppy, I said in a soothing voice. It's just fireworks. Happy Bastille Day, Bonbon. Bonbon? Sylvie asked with a tilt of her head. She needed a name, I explained. I wondered if it bothered Sylvie that I'd gone ahead and named the little dog. Tu t'appelles Bonbon, she said and ran her head lightly over the dog's upright ears. She flashed me a smile, and I smiled back. She needs a home. You take her to US, Grace? No, that's a long way from here, and my mom says no. Can you take her home, Colette? Je regrette, I'm sorry. My maman, my mother, know how you say, allergies? I asked. Oui. Sylvie sighed, as if she knew precisely what I was feeling. Unfortunately, neither of us could come to Bonbon's rescue.